I loved Spider Noir. I love noir movies from the 40s and 50s, and I love Spider-Man, so naturally I had a blast watching this. This just opened up the possibilities of what Spider-Man stories could be, and I hope that they keep taking creative risks like this. And in this video, I'm going to explain why Spider Noir changed my life. For starters, this is such an earnest portrayal of noir movies from the 40s and 50s. From the costumes, to the cars, to the music, the infamous femme fatale, smoking and drinking, the haze in the backgrounds on set, snappy dialogue. This was released in two formats, black and white and in color. And honestly, if you didn't watch this in black and white, what are you doing? I'm convinced that this was made for black and white. Not just because the Spider Noir character from the Spider-Verse movies comes from a specifically black and white world, but I feel like you can just tell by the way that it was shot. If you're filming something like this, you don't just shoot it and then throw a black and white filter on top of it, like I'm doing in this video. You have to consider the sets, the lighting, the color of wardrobes, the haziness in the background. I felt like they did such a careful job with all of these elements to make sure that this was as authentic as possible to those pictures from the 40s and 50s. This is a beautiful show, and not just because of the authentic black and white color grading. That's part of it. But the other part of it is the cinematography. They use this split diopter effect quite a bit, and it's so cool to look at. This technique is fairly common today, however, it was first pioneered back in the 40s. Another really cool effect that they use in the show is Ben Reilly's spider sense. It almost looks like he's in pain whenever it happens as the camera closes in on him and starts to rattle, which makes for a pretty disorienting feeling. Yet he just seems to be used to it at this point and always uses it to his advantage. I love how over the last few years we've been getting so many different representations of the spider sense. I love how there's not just one distinct way to capture this ability. Overall, I think the action is pretty serviceable. I think the most exciting moments are anytime web slinging is involved. I do wish we got to see more Spider-Man swinging around retro New York, but I also recognize that the story they're trying to tell is more of a down-to-earth detective noir story. I also love how he has organic webbing, which even though I think I prefer web shooters over organic webbing definitely fits this universe better. It's kind of crazy how organic webbing started with the Raimi movies, and it's not just an ability that Spider-Man already has. I remember when I was a kid, I thought Spider-Man could just shoot web fluid out of his wrists because I had watched the Raimi movies. And looking back at it now, it's almost more of a stretch to think that he can't do this, but instead chemically developed web fluid on his own and created web shooters as a teenager. Like, what? Anyway, I digress. I can also appreciate how much a real person is in the suit for a lot of this. Besides the brief web slinging moments, I think every scene with Spider-Man is a guy in a suit. Don't know how often Nicolas Cage is in that because he's 60, but honestly, I don't even care. So much of live-action Spider-Man is replaced by a CGI model, so I love how tangible this Spider-Man felt in this series. Speaking of CGI, I also think that the black and white color grading in the show helps hide some of the CGI and green screen. Oh, and there's also an amazing action scene where a drunk Spider-Man beats the shit out of some bar patrons who were talking bad about the Spider. They weren't even thugs, they were blue-collar paying customers who were actually kind of right in their opinions, and a rock-bottom Ben Reilly just unleashes on them. This is a hard-drinking, chain-smoking, heartbroken loner who's down on his luck after losing the love of his life. When the show starts, Ben Reilly is a retired superhero after losing the love of his life, Ruby. This puts Ben into a deep depression for 5 years and becomes a private detective as his day job. I found the origin of how he became the Spider very interesting. He was a soldier in World War II, and while on a mission to free POWs, he wasn't bitten by a radioactive spider, but rather bitten by a mutated man spider who was a product of a Nazi experiment. I also like how these experiments led to the creation of Spider-Man's classic villains down the line, which I'll touch on a little bit later. I love this portrayal of Robbie Robertson. We usually see him as an older mentor figure to Peter, so this is really a fresh adaptation of what a young, hungry Robbie would have been like in his heyday as a reporter. He also is a man of good character, and he knows the difference of right and wrong and steers Ben Reilly on the right path. Cat Hardy is obviously an adaptation of Felicia Hardy, aka Black Cat, as the femme fatale of this story. She's not a superhero in this show, but there are some nods to her cat alter ego from the comics. This is a classic example of a femme fatale, as she's in love with Flint Marko, which drives most of her motivations, including taking advantage of Ben and ultimately killing Silvermane. I like this take on Flint Marko, who's this muscle for Silvermane, and is very loyal to him, but is also in love with Cat. His powers are killing him, so he kind of self-sabotages his relationship with her for a lot of this series. I like his design of having these patches of sand on his face that grow the more distressed he is, and the more he uses his powers, the closer he gets to his death. Tombstone is probably my favorite out of the monsters in the show. His powers are probably the closest to the 616 version of Tombstone. Not that I have a problem with this show diluting these characters' powers, but I think this character has the most translatable powers in a show/world like this, where there aren't as many supers. Lonnie Lincoln is definitely the most sympathetic character out of these three monsters. His reason for joining Silvermane makes the most sense to me. Because he's black, people would hate him anyways, even without any powers, so why not reap the benefits that come with working for Silvermane as long as he can until his powers kill him too. I really wasn't expecting this show to touch on racism at all. I was under the impression that this universe just kind of was perpetually in a 40s/50s state with the current day diversity that we have. And for the most part, that is true, but I think the show touched on racism just enough to make this element work, since Lonnie and Robbie bond over their shared experience and end up being friends by the end. The only character I really didn't like in this series was the Electro character. He is so annoying. He's supposed to be this wannabe actor, so he's always looking for the spotlight, but he just never shuts up.
Christ, do you ever shut up? No.
He's always quoting some monologue, and he thinks he's the main character. He's like Beetlejuice if he had electricity powers. The show acknowledges this, and the fact that he's an impulsive hothead, and I get that it's necessary for the show, but I really don't like him. One performance that I did love, however, was Nicolas Cage's. As always, he's committing to this role 100%, which I can always appreciate.
We're getting sad, we're tired, we're lonely.
I love all the talking he does with a cigarette in his mouth. I love all of his weird voices and mannerisms. I love all the little characters he does when he's trying to go undercover.
I'm Pete with maintenance. Sorry about the leak. It'll be no problem. I'll just, gosh, the unit downstairs, big mess. Water everywhere.
Hey, Dr. Collins, where the hell have you been? I'm losing my mind back here. Hey, you're not Collins.
I was a little skeptical going into this because I didn't know how a 62-year-old Nicolas Cage would be as Spider-Man. But after seeing this, I'm glad that he reprised his role from the Spider-Verse movies to be in this show. I think he plays a sad, lonely Spider-Man really well. Like I said, I am such a fan of old noir films, so combining this and Spider-Man just worked on every level for me. The show had twists and turns, betrayal, and a relatively happy ending for almost all the characters. This was such a creative risk that entirely paid off in my opinion, and I hope we keep getting these unique takes on Spider-Man. This and Spider-Verse are what they should be doing with the Spider-Man property, not making movies about Spider-Man villains without Spider-Man. But what do you think? Did you love it? Did you hate it? And either way, if you made it this far, be sure to comment Ruby in the comments below so I know that you're a real one. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to give it a like, as 1 like equals 1 hallucinogenic spider. And be sure to subscribe so you don't miss my next video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.